Dame la moustache en la camucha. Siento patamilo, mira taca, tiki tunetica. Siento patamilo, mira taca, tiki tunetica. Siento patamilo, mira taca, tiki tunetica. Siento patamilo, mira taca, tiki taca, tiki. Siento patamilo, mira taca, tiki tunetica. Siento patamilo, mira taca, tiki tunetica. Siento patamilo, mira taca, tiki tunetica. Dame la moustache en la camucha.
What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show, and the realest man in YouTube is back. And I know y'all been craving and waiting for me and waiting for my opinions on so much stuff, because you know I'm gonna keep it honest and real with you. But guess what? I'm gonna make my first in-person appearance at the Burgundy and Soul event on Thursday the 20th. I ask y'all to come out and meet me. I would love to meet a lot of y'all in person. There's so many of y'all who sit up there and, you know, y'all were commenting on my videos and stuff like that, and I greatly appreciate all of you. And I just want to meet you guys for the first time, meet y'all in person and all that. But guess what? Along with that, I'm going to also, because this is list season, I felt the need to put together my own list. List that I know for a fact that you guys want to hear my opinion on. And to be quite honest, I have two top 5 lists that is going to make you talk and even bring up conversation when we meet in person. Like I said, I can't wait to meet you guys, and I'm excited about my first in-person appearance that will be at the Burgundy and Soul event down at the bullpen at the Navy Yard. So definitely come out, because like I said, I definitely want to meet y'all. But my first top 5 list will then lead into the next top 5 list. So the first top 5 list is the 5 things Josh Harris needs to do once he takes over this team. And these 5 things are very key, because we as fans we want to come back. But you gotta basically butter us up, sweeten us up, make us feel wanted. You know, we gotta feel like the gold digging chick. You know what I'm saying? Like, we gotta feel like the gold digging chick that's like, oh yeah, I know I'm bad. What you say? Oh, you about to show me how much money? Oh, you know you can't get this without giving me something. That's how we want to feel. We want to feel like the baddest chick walking down the street and everybody wants us, and you the one who came with the biggest bag. That's what you got to do. So number 5, have a huge fan event completely free. Make it a family event. Make it out there in the parking lot of the stadium. Do everything you can. Have the players out there. Have some former players out there. Have personalities out there. YouTubers. Everybody out there. Just so everybody can get the fan experience and get the excitement built back up into the team. Also, pass out some of that merch. Understand this. There's a lot of people who don't want the merch. I am one of those people. I don't like Commanders. I said I was going to buy merch because at the end of the day, I am doing a Washington Commanders podcast, which is not only focused on the Commanders, but I do the Commanders a lot. So with that, I am going to buy the merch, but there's a lot of people that's not going to buy the merch. So give out free merch. I mean, when I went to the Minnesota game, they gave out free merch. They gave out a Commander scarf. Didn't wear the scarf, didn't need the scarf, but I got one. But still, give out the merch. Give out some of the hats. Give out some of the shirts, because I'm pretty sure that there's a whole bunch of stuff that's just left there. That's basically collecting dust because people don't want the merch. So if you give it out for free, you'll find people wearing it and wearing the merch versus sitting up there and just letting it collect dust. So again, a huge fan event that's completely free. Food, drinks, not alcohol, but food and drinks, all free. Let the people come in, let them have fun, and build that relationship back up with the fan base. Number 4. I know a lot of people not going to like this, but I have to say it. Keep the stadium in Prince George's County. I mean, it has to stay in Landover. A lot of y'all who complain about not being able to get out of FedEx Field and everything like that clearly never went to a game at RFK and don't remember how complicated and hard it was getting out of RFK after a game. RFK was probably one of the worst stadiums when it came to actually getting out of the stadium and going home. I mean, and even though the streets are wide now, it's still not big enough to get everybody out of there and home at a decent time. Even the on-ramp that goes on to 295 is just a one-lane on-ramp, and then it goes into a two-lane freeway, which basically bottlenecks all the way up until Pennsylvania Avenue. And then once you get past Pennsylvania Avenue, it opens up to 395 and extend to 495, but it's still a congested little area. So for everybody who sits up there and say, I want the stadium back in DC because it was impossible to get out of FedEx Field, y'all have never been to a game at RFK because it was hard as hell to get out of the stadium at RFK, especially when I was growing up and I was young. I remember it used to take us, I lived on Martin Luther King Avenue, and it used to take us almost an hour to get to Martin Luther King Avenue, which is nowhere when it comes to where the stadium is and getting home. So, I mean, I could just imagine what the nightmare was for people going to Virginia and all that type of stuff, and people going to Maryland. So, again, I think the stadium should stay in PG. Not only that, let's be honest, who really wants to go to Virginia? You know, 95 itself is a horrific stretch of road. It really is. It's so busy on the weekends. And that's going and coming. That's what she said. It's such a busy stretch of road. No matter how you look at it, it's so far away. It's not even worth the headache. And then on top of that, let's be honest, Virginia's like the dirty whore. You know, Virginia's the whore that's left out there when all the other good whores is gone, and you're just like, I guess. And you just pull the crumpled little $5 out of your pocket, the one that you just shoved in your pocket because you needed change, and you just wave it out in front of her and you say, here, just give me head. That's what Virginia is. It's one of those places. The police are awful. You know, they harass everybody. If you get in trouble, you got to go all the way to Leesburg to even pay for the ticket. You got to show up in court. They don't let you sit up there and do a video thing. No, they want you to drive your butt all the way to Leesburg just because they can do it. It's a horrendous place to put a stadium. And again, it's not a place that you really want to go to. And like I said, Dumfries, that's so far down the road. Nobody really wants to go there. They really don't. So for real, to be quite honest, leave the stadium in PG. 3, pay the players. I saw the list of the top 10 NFL safeties and the honorable mentions that went on. And I'll say this. All the safeties that were on the list rightfully deserve to be on that list. They were some of the best guys in the league. Now, Cam should have been an honorable mention, but I understand why he wasn't, and I understand why he wasn't on the list. The reason he wasn't on the list has everything to do with the fact that at the end of the day, Jack Del Rio's defense does not benefit Cam Curl at all. At all. It doesn't benefit him at all. And because of that, you're talking about he's playing the Buffalo nickel position. Cam Curl is a fantastic coverage safety. He's a guy that you can put back there and play a single high safety look, and he would be able to do it on his own. But the thing about it is that you're forcing him to play a position that he's better than. And he'll never be looked at as one of the top safeties, because at the end of the day, he's playing a position because he has to play it, but he's playing a position that he could be doing so much more with. And due to that, they just don't understand it. And that's why Cam missed out on being on that top 10 list. But again, he's one of these guys that need to be paid. You have to pay these players. Montez Sweat has to be paid. Chase Young has to be paid. I understand that everything is kind of odd with all this, but you have to pay these guys. You might have to bring back Curtis Samuel. You more than likely you might have to bring back Antonio Gibson, who, by the way, is your only versatile running back on your roster right now. He's the only guy that can go out there and legitimately catch passes in a passing route, and the other guys don't do that. So again, you're talking about your only dual threat, triple threat running back, Antonio Gibson. He's the only one on your roster, and he's up for free agency as well. So you gotta pay the players. Number 2, name change. You gotta change the name. Commanders does nothing for the fan base at all. Absolutely zero. Nobody cares about this name. Nobody wants this name. I had a guy who was working on the inside, and I did a video about them already having the logos and everything like that. And my friend had asked me to take the video down. And I did that because the next day, on that Monday, they announced that I dropped my video Sunday night. My friend calls me late Sunday, asked me to take down the video so they can announce on Monday that they did in fact have the name and all that. So, and at the end of the video, I said, I hope the name isn't Commanders. So again, Commanders, it's a horrid name. It's not connected to the city. It's not connected to anything. It doesn't invoke fear. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't even make the people stand behind it. So again, you have to change this name. It's no getting around it. You have to change the name. You don't have to change it tomorrow. You don't have to change it a year from now, but eventually you will have to change it, because you're going to have to build the fan base back up. And Commanders is not a name that the fans are going to love or get behind. So you're going to have to change the name. Last but not least, and this one leads into my next list, but last but not least, you have to fire Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera was actually hired as a scapegoat for Dan Snyder. Dan did not think he was going to have to be forced to sell this team, period. Dan thought he was going to make it out. Dan thought he was going to make it through. Dan thought that no matter what was going on, his family was still going to own the team. And he was using Ron Rivera as a scapegoat. Prior to hiring Ron Rivera, Dan Snyder had never hired anybody that was a loser. And that's me being absolutely honest. You go back to the history of who Dan hired. He never hired a loser. You think about it. Starting off with Marty Schottenheimer. Marty Schottenheimer had a long career with the Kansas City Chiefs. Marty Schottenheimer was just fired from the Kansas City Chiefs after having a long playoff run in Kansas City for years. Dan hired Marty Schottenheimer. After that, he goes out and hires one of the most successful college coaches in the entire college world in Steve Spurrier. And I think at that time, Spurrier was just coming off, I think he was either a year or two removed from the national championship that he actually won. So again, you're talking about, here's another guy Another guy that he was planning on bringing in to actually sit up there and coach the team. Again, prior to Ron, he had never hired a loser. Then he comes back after Steve Spurrier with Joe Gibbs, who was a hugely successful NFL coach, and even came back and actually was getting the team back on track when he came back. So again, you're talking about, again, another guy, not a loser. Then you're talking about Jim Zorn. Jim Zorn at the time was one of the best quarterback coaches in the entire NFL. He got that recognition as being a guy who could absolutely develop quarterbacks. Not only that, he was supposed to be the offensive coordinator for Jim Fossil. And Jim Fossil, I think at the time, he was coming away from a successful Giants season. So again, another successful head coach. Then after that, he brings in Mike Shanahan, again, Super Bowl winning Mike Shanahan, two-time Super Bowl winner Mike Shanahan. Then after that, he brings in what was one of the most successful offensive coordinators in Jay Gruden, who was running one of the best offenses in Cincinnati at the time. So with that all being said, Ron Rivera was the first actual loser that he hired prior to anything else. Ron Rivera had 3 losing seasons prior to getting to Washington. So that tells you right then and there that at the end of the day, Dan was actually using Ron Rivera as a scapegoat because he knew Ron Rivera wasn't going to be a guy that was going to change the franchise around, and that we were all going to be clamoring to about fire Ron. I'm pretty sure that Dan figured out when he met him that his messaging was inconsistent and everything like that, and knew that, hey, this guy is going to help me escape the fans from hating me. And like I said, at the end of the day, Ron was a scapegoat coach. So those are the top 5 things that Josh Harris should do when he takes over. Now, I go into my next top 5 list. And like I said, the number 1 of firing Ron Rivera leads into my new top 10, my new top 5. And that is the 5 reasons Ron Rivera should be fired. Reason number 5, the name change. Now, I don't know how this happened, but Ron somehow has escaped the fact that he was 100% behind this name change and focusing it on military-based names. Prior to that, Ron sat up there and was always talking about the military, his military background, players having military background, what the military meant, all this type of stuff. That's why when you saw the initial things that came out, he sat up there, it came out, it was the admirals, it was the commanders, it was the generals, it was the armada. It was the armada. Those were all military terms. He didn't think about something as simple as like the Spartans or nothing like that. Something that invokes some type of level of toughness or something like that. No, he wanted to be directly connected to the military. And understand this, my inside guy said that Ron was a full participant in this name change and going with the commanders. He was the one who liked commanders over anything else. When everybody else wanted to go somewhere else and they were like, well, maybe we should try something else, he was the one who doubled down on commanders. And the fact that he's the one who's behind this name change, a name that we as the entire fan base absolutely hate, he needs to go, y'all. He needs to go. This is one of the reasons he needs to go. The name change. Number 4, his poor understanding of his coaching staff systems. when Ron had this thing where he constantly blamed the players. It was always, well, the players just need to do what we ask them to do. The players need to, if they do what we tell them to do, then they will be successful. And if they're not successful, then you can blame us coaches. He said that over and over and over again. And it wasn't until year 3 in Cleveland that he finally figured out that a member of his coaching staff, after your man John had been saying it since year 1, he finally figured out that Scott Turner could not call plays well. And this is after year 3. Every quarterback, from Dwayne Haskins all the way to Carson Wentz, talked about how complicated this offense was. And it wasn't a surprise that the guy who understood the offense, who looked the most successful in the offense, was a guy who had been in the offense for almost 7 years prior to coming to Washington. No, 3 years prior to coming to Washington. Because I think he was in Minnesota. Yeah, Taylor was in Minnesota and then in Carolina. So he had been in this offense, familiar with this offense for a very long time. So guess what? No wonder he kind of understood. He would make plays in spite of the fact that Scott Turner was a horrid play caller. So again, this is where Taylor Heineke should have gotten credit for being able to still play and make plays even though Scott Turner was a horrid play caller. And again, the fact that Ron doesn't know this is insane. How does Ron not know that Jack is running this outdated defense where the edges, the guys that are on the edges, have so much responsibility? The way that Chase Young and Montez Sweat play, they play like outside linebackers in the 3-4. They don't play like edge rushers, guys who can get up the field. They got too much responsibility just to be pass rushing. And Ron clearly doesn't understand Jack's defense enough to understand that that did not work. Also with the Buffalo nickel position, the fact that he didn't realize that Jack was going to use that position as basically a third linebacker, he should have known that that wasn't going to be a position that was going to be that valuable when it came to the passing game. So again, this is a reflection of Ron's lack of understanding his coaching staff systems and also drafting players for those systems. So again, that's another reason. Reason number 3, personnel decisions. Now, y'all can sit up here and this goes to free agency, the guys that's on the team, and also in the draft. Now, I know a lot of y'all are going to say, hey, wait a minute, John. A lot of those rookies played. Yes, they did. They did play. But guess what's going on right now? You're talking about a lot of the rookies play, but guess what? We got so many guys that's going to be up for free agency that was drafted under Ron. You talking about Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Cam Curl, Antonio Gibson are all up for free agency at the exact same time. Like, how does that make any sense? How did you underutilize these guys and not make it a point of trying to at least sign some of these guys prior to them all coming up for free agency? All these guys are up for free agency, and all these guys are major contributors to this team. How do you make such a massive mistake like that? Not only that, remember when he came in, he talked about he came in to sit up there because of the roster, and a lot of the guys that were on the roster at the time he took over is all gone. All gone. And this team is still on the same path that it's been on. Let's talk about the draft. He's sitting out here talking about how, yeah, we took Sam Howell and we got 100% confidence in Sam Howell, and yeah, we're glad we got Sam Howell. Do y'all know the guys that he picked before Sam Howell? How many of y'all know the guys that he picked before Sam Howell? He actually picked Fedarian Mathis before Sam Howell, right? In the 2nd round. He took Cole Turner before Sam Howell. He took Percy Butler before Sam Howell. And I can't remember who else he took. But he took guys before Sam Howell. And you telling me that, and Brian Robinson, he took Brian Robinson before Sam Howell. And you telling me that out of all those guys that went before you picked Sam Howell in the 5th round were better players than Sam Howell in that draft? You telling me that you took a running back, which is a diminished position at this point in the NFL, that running back was more valuable to you than the quarterback that you said had a 1st round grade on him, and you took him in the 5th round? Percy Butler, you telling me you couldn't draft Sam Howell before Percy Butler? Percy Butler. You couldn't draft Sam Howell before Percy Butler. That's full of crap, man. Full of crap. And we know it. His free agency. He's done a very poor job in free agency. Very, very poor. And we're talking about bringing in, you had Bobby McCain for 2 years. He was gone. Then you brought in Will Jack. He didn't do much because you tried to force him into playing something that he wasn't. I mean, you're talking about we've had a hodgepodge of offensive linemen that has come in and out and all over the place. Our linebacking core looks like trash. And somehow, some way, we're supposed to be 100% confident in the fact that Ron is able to select players and on top of that, understand personnel well. This man, when he got here, he had the 6th best offensive line in the entire NFL. And immediately got rid of both bookends. And then because you got rid of one bookend in Morgan Moses, who was best friends with Brendan Sheriff no longer wanted to be here. So we had to keep signing him to franchise tag and franchise tag and franchise tag over and over again until we finally just said we can't pay him. And since then, we've had a subpar offensive line since then. His personnel decisions have been terrible. Even again, you're talking about you going with Sam Howell, and you're talking about the draft Sam Howell came in. He wasn't better than Brian Robinson to take, because again, he was a 1st round graded guy. He wasn't better than you. You took Brian Robinson before him. You took Percy Butler before him. You took Phildarian Mathis before him. You took Cole Turner before him. So what does that say about Ron's decision making when it comes to personnel? A guy you have supposedly a 1st round quarterback grade on. Come on, y'all. Number 2, in-game and before game decisions. We saw Ron make some huge baffles in games, not calling timeouts, not understanding the play clock, not watching the game clock. We've seen him do that. We've seen him sit up there and basically let the coaches run the whole schemes and everything like that and not make a change at all when it came to anything. He had a lackadaisical personality on the sideline. He wasn't saying anything. He wasn't trying to adjust anything. Nothing. And every time you turn around, Ron would sit up there and it would just be like, Ron, do something. Call a time. How many times have all of us have been screaming at the TV, Ron, call a timeout? And he didn't call a timeout. So again, we're talking about Ron making these poor decisions over and over again. Last but not least, and this is the one that, in all honesty, is the biggest reason why he should be fired. And that's the inconsistent messaging. Aren't we just over it now? Aren't we just over and tired of the inconsistent messaging? I mean, when the man first got here, he told us that the reason he took the job was because of the personnel and immediately flipped the personnel. Lost both his bookends just traded one away for nothing, and traded a Hall of Famer for nothing. Absolutely nothing. Get rid of the Iron Man, who was his other bookend. He had the sixth best offensive line in the entire NFL. And it went from the sixth best line all the way down to, I think, like the 17th or 18th at that time. And I mean, you're talking about how many times have we heard him say stuff? Oh, we go back. I had a first round grade on Sam Howell. Didn't y'all have a first round grade on Sam Howell? But you still took him in the 5th round. Like, you still felt that a running back was better than him. You felt that a defensive lineman was better than him. You felt that a safety, who, by the way, hasn't really played that much or that often, was better than him. You felt that a tight end was better than him. So again, if your messaging doesn't even make any sense, then again, the whole thing of it's the players' fault. The players aren't doing what we asked them to do. They aren't doing what they say we were supposed to do. If they do what we tell them to do, then they'll be successful. And if they are doing what we tell them to do and they're not successful, then it's on us coaches. And then you let Scott Turner basically run every quarterback into the ground. And let's not get on the Taylor Heineke situation. I mean, that was so damn inconsistent. When you thought about it, Taylor was the better quarterback. Like, Taylor has been, since Cam Newton, Taylor has been his second most successful quarterback. Understand it. His most successful quarterback is Cam Newton. His second most successful quarterback is Taylor Heineke. And Taylor Heineke was actually better than anything else. Here's another thing. You're talking about the decision he made. Like, you're talking about San Francisco. Taylor is actually playing very well. He has 2 turnovers. That's not actually his fault. The sack was not his fault. Charles Leno missed a block. Then Brian Robinson didn't run the route all the way out. So guess what? Those were not his fault. He was benched. They went with Carson Wentz in the Cleveland game. Carson throws 2 interceptions early in the game. And instead of taking Carson out and putting Taylor in, he sits up there and goes with Carson the entire game. And then everybody, like, the whole thing about him not knowing that the playoffs was on the line, yeah, that's true. I know some people are sitting up there saying, oh, he was making a joke. He wasn't making a joke, because no coach would be that stupid with your playoff hopes on the line and go with a quarterback who in the first quarter threw 2 blatant picks. Blatant picks. So, for all that, y'all, at the end of the day, Ron just needs to be fired. And that's just what it is. Y'all tell me what y'all think. How do y'all feel about my list? Y'all let me know what y'all think. For y'all who will be at the Burgundy and Soul event, y'all tell me what y'all think in person. For everybody else, leave a comment, like, subscribe. Get me those likes. Get me likes. Get me likes. Other than that, this has been your man, John Fortune. I am back. And this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.